Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Throne of Steel episode number 134 based on novel. So let's start. Boss, these are my fellow brothers. Lin Xin pointed to 500 mags all clad in fiery red gowns as he spoke. After going through 2 days' rest, Lin Xin's body was close to normal. After releasing his mental burden and letting out his pent-up feelings, his mental force seemed to have a consequent rise. As the captain of the number 1 mage squad, he obviously couldn't rest for too long. After recovering his spirit, he immediately returned to his post. Aside from Li Jingxi's summons from that day, Long Haochen didn't receive any order or request from the mage temple. In other words, he was in a state of total freedom. At least for now, Lin Xin was still the captain of the number 1 mage squad. With his invitation full of great kindness, Long Haochen's group of 3 accompanied by Li Xin arrived on the fortress. With Lin Xin's status in the Tombal mountain pass, making a proof of identity for them couldn't be easier. The ones guarding the front of the fortress were all tall, robust warriors clad in heavy armor. These warriors were almost all backup sent by the warrior temple, and at their rear were mags. The number of mags on the fortress was sufficient to astonish anyone. For as far as the eye could see, Long Haochen saw over 2,000 mags on the city walls. And furthermore, mags of different elements were all assigned to different mage squads and were clad in gowns of different colors, showing proof of their assignations. When looking into the distance, 8 demon god pillars could be seen standing straight among the demon barracks. 7 of them formed a ring around the central one, which was particularly immense. Dense purplish-black radiance was unceasingly rising up above this demon god pillar, and one could faintly see a fierce face appearing in the midst of the purplish-black light. The hell demon Marbas was ranked 5th amongst demon gods. Like the demon god of death Saminaga was overseeing the dragon-resisting mountain pass, the hell demon god Marbas was standing around here. From this one could see how much the demon side valued this Tombal mountain pass. After the holy war went on for so long, the Tombal mountain pass was the side with the fewest casualties. This wasn't only about human casualties, but also demon casualties. That's because in the absolute majority of times, both sides' mags were opposed, and no one was able to easily break through the enemy's defensive formations. In terms of magical force, the Tombal mountain pass wasn't inferior to the enemy in the slightest, and had the advantage of terrain, making use of their magical array. Marbas even personally intervened sometimes, but never managed to turn the tides, returning in low spirits due to failure every time. Mags. The fire mags forming the team were all looking at Long Haochen's group curiously. Fully clad in his uniform of golden armor, Long Haochen was undoubtedly the greatest focus of attention. However, as they were firmly disciplined, no one muttered any comments. Lin Xin lowered his voice to a great extent, asking Long Haochen, "Boss, when are we going?" "Let's go look for Yuan Yuan in the southeastern fort." South of the Tombal mountain pass was the side of the warrior temple. After reuniting with Long Haochen, Lin Xin became even more eager to reunite with the others. Long Haochen let out a faint smile. "No hurry. Since we have arrived inside the Tombal mountain pass, we should do our best to help, and then after a few battles' time we'll see again whether we can really find some contributions to bring our help to the Tombal mountain pass." Of course, he had another thought as he came to the decision of remaining here for a bit longer. Long Qianying and Li Jingxi's words made him realize deeply the importance of uniting the 6 great temples for real, and they placed this hope onto Long Haochen's shoulders. To join hands together against the demon threat, it was first necessary to understand the 6 great temples. The battlefield was obviously the best place for that. Our Tombal mountain pass is invulnerable to attack, there's no need for an outsider such as you to do anything. A cold voice sounded out from nearby. Long Haochen's group turned round, only to see a man and a woman escorted by dozens of mags. It was Shen Yuanyang and Tan Wan. Tan Wan was walking in the front and Shen Yuanyang a few steps behind. Both of them were fully clad in mage attire, faintly letting out some strong magic fluctuations. Seeing them, Lin Xin was stupefied, but immediately became enraged at her, letting out a cold shout. "What did you just say?" Seeing Lin Xin, Shen Yuanyang had a distinct look of jealousy. Tan Yang's expression was still odd, as she rapidly swept a glance at Lin Xin standing beside Li Xin, coldly declaring, "The Tombal mountain pass doesn't need outsiders." "Lin Xin, as the captain of the number 1 mage squad, you still brought outsiders onto the fortress without explicit approval. This matter will be reported to the temple." Lin Xin wrinkled his brows, looking at Tan Wan with a clearly complex gaze. "Miss Wanzi, why would there be any need for that?" As this appellation of Miss Tan came out, Tan Wan's body shook visibly, but she rapidly suppressed her own emotions. Captain Lin, please conduct yourself with dignity. I am the captain of the Raging Wind Legion, not some miss. I am ordering you to immediately bring these people out, or else don't blame me for becoming ruthless. The Raging Wind squad didn't belong to the 10 main mage squads, but was a mage squad directly subordinate to the mage temple's head Li Xingxi. After Tan Wan's cultivation broke through the 7th step, Li Xingxi put this squad formed of wind elemental mags under her command. In terms of status, the Raging Wind Legion was visibly above the 10 main squads, which was to say that Tan Wan was without mistake Lin Xin's superior officer. Lin Xin's face had a burst of red before having a burst of white, but in front of Tan Wan, he seemed unwilling to flare up like he seemed about to. Long Haochen pat his shoulder, smiling to him, let it be, Lin Xin. Since the Tombal Mountain Pass doesn't need our assistance, we will go down for now. Saying that, he turned towards Caio and Han, and turned round, heading down from the fortress. Wait a moment. Tan Wan said suddenly. Long Haochen turned round, is Captain Tan Wan calling for me? Tan Wan nodded, her look becoming very sharp. Before Provisional Saint Knight Head returns to the Tombal Mountain Pass, would it be possible to ask for your guidance, to compare notes with me? I will be comparing notes with you. Without waiting for Long Haochen to start to talk, Kia became unable to bear it. A tyrannical burst of killing intent swept out from her. Long Haochen could keep enduring, but she couldn't. If someone remained so overbearing, Kia had to break out in rage sooner or later. In front of the killing intent discharged by Kia, the expression on the faces of the crowd of mags immediately changed. Outside of Tan Wan and Xian Yuanyang, all of them dropped to the ground and only barely managed to resist the onslaught of her killing intent by hurriedly stimulating their spiritual energy. Tan Wan and Xian Yuanyang also looked perturbed. Xian Yuanyang had seen before how Kia cut the seal open, and was better off, but Tan Wan was in great shock. The killing intent from Kia congealed, tyrannical beyond compare. Before she put it to use, not the slightest bit of it was allowed to leak out. That required a considerable level of training and cultivation. Long Haochen pressed on Kia's shoulder, forget about it. The 6 great temples are the same family. Our strength should be focused on the enemy and not for inner battles. Let's go. Saying that, he pulled Caio to turn around and go down from the fortress. Li Xin gave Tan Wan a profound glance and followed Long Haochen's crew out. Lin Xin couldn't help but clench his fist, looking at Tan Wan with ferocity. Aside, Xian Yuanyang sneered, Lin Xin, don't let such matters happen again. Otherwise, we will accuse you of misconduct. Get out of here, is this some place for you to butt in? Lin Xin's suppressed rage was almost instantly set to flames. He was unable to find a way out against Tan Wan, but Xian Yuanyang didn't make him afraid in the slightest. Xian Yuanyang didn't have a good temperament either, and became angry at Lin Xin. Pointing with a white staff in his hand, he formed an arrow of light and shot it at Lin Xin. Lin Xin had a look of disdain. His eyes twinkled with blue light, and his body immediately undulated with watery ripples. At 2 meters distance, that light arrow was directly decomposed, and immediately, a sharp phoenix cry ascended above Lin Xin. A vigorous blue fire burst forth from his body, rising into the surrounding air. Above Lin Xin condensed a phoenix's shape, facing Xian Yuanyang. His eyes were also bursting out with surly killing intent, already full of murderous spirit. Enough, stop. Tan Wan shouted in anger, standing in the middle of the two before turning towards Xian Yuanyang, we are going. Saying that, she turned around and left. Neither Xian Yuanyang nor Lin Xin could respond to Tan Wan. As Tan Wan looked deeply at the flames rising around Lin Xin, his eyes twinkled with anger. After snorting, he turned around and left. The blue flames slowly vanished, as Lin Xin hatefully slapped at the air, as the flames scattered in all directions. On the other side, Li Xin was following them away. Haochen. I'm all right, sis. Long Haochen naturally understood that Li Xin wanted to console him. Li Xin then said, speaking of which, things have been made quite difficult for Lin Xin. His contradiction with Tan Wan and Xian Yuanyang is greatly related to me. Long Haochen had a quite curious look. I found Lin Xin quite respectful towards Tan Wan, but she still insisted on criticizing him. Just 2 days ago, Long Haochen had met with the head Li Xingxi as the provisional Saint Knight head from the Night Temple. Even with Tan Wan's identity in the Mage Temple, there's no way she should be so impolite towards him. Long Haochen took notice before that when Tan Wan was speaking to them, a gaze was focused on Lin Xin from beginning to end. That rage seemed clearly related to Lin Xin. They only seemed to have been targets on whom her anger was to be taken out. Li Xin replied, "This matter was born from a misunderstanding. When he was young, Lin Xin used to live in the Tombal mountain pass, and Tan Wan was a few years older. He used to always call her Miss Wanzi, and since she was young, she's always taken good care of him and treated him well. Lin Xin, having lost his parents very young, he became very fondly attached to Tan Wan. But these two had a gap in age, and Lin Xin had vowed not to use magic for attacks. Though Tan Wan repeatedly tried to convince him, he still remained unwavering in his oath. Afterwards, Lin Xin's grandfather was transferred to Holy City. Originally, Lin Xin wasn't planning to follow his grandfather there, but the engagement between Tan Wan and Xian Yuanyang left him greatly wounded, and after leaving her a letter, he followed his grandfather to Holy City. Then they didn't have any contact for a very long time. In that letter, Lin Xin told her about his feelings, which could be said to be for the sake of unburdening himself. After reaching Holy City, he devoted his effort to the research of magic medicine, and gradually let go of these feelings. Afterwards, he crossed paths with you and became a demon hunter. But what he didn't know was that after Tan Wan saw that letter, she also found out about her own inner feelings, that she was in love with Lin Xin too. For this reason, she asked Temple Head Li Xingji to appear personally, for the sake of cancelling their scheduled wedding. But due to the excessive sensitivity of the matter, Temple Head Li had her cultivate in seclusion. First, it was for the sake of her cultivation, and then to avoid exposing her to the heart of the struggle of public opinion. After Tan Wan's secluded cultivation terminated and when she came to look for Lin Xin, he had already become a demon hunter and went to run missions alongside you lot. That's how the matter ended. And when they met again in the Tombal mountain pass, Lin Xin had already become a couple with me. Hearing Li Xin's story, the three of them looked at each other, and Han Yu expressed very strangely, "It's a matter of hate born from love." Li Xin had a bitter smile. "It can be considered so. For that reason, I find Tan Wan extremely pitiful. No matter what it is about her, Lin Xin and I have been as forbearing as possible." It turned out that after we returned to the Tombal mountain pass, everyone learned about that misunderstanding. After all, Lin Xin and I had been thinking that she was already married to Xian Yuanyang at the time we were dating. This matter is a freak combination of factors where no one can be blamed. At the start, Tan Wan still held a good attitude toward us, but after Lin Xin decided to train in offensive magic for my sake, Tan Wan's attitude changed drastically, taking it out on him whenever possible. And furthermore, she seems to believe that the fact that she couldn't end up together with Lin Xin was related to demon hunt squads. You are all members of Lin Xin's team, so her previous attitude should be for that reason. Han Yu let out a bitter smile, so we were innocently caught in such a calamity. Long Haochen reacted, "The response Tan Wan's feelings received makes her quite pitiful. I hope that in the future there could be a chance to resolve this matter." Li Xin replied, "I fear that it will be very hard. Her answer is deep, unless I go away. But Lin Xin has already paid such a cost for me, I am already." Reaching this point, the valiant and formidable-looking female knight couldn't help but blush. After having been through so much, she came to love Lin Xin dearly. How could she not be moved by the act of a man who abandoned something he has dedicated so many years of his life to, only for the sake of one girl? Right at this time, a sharp cry rang out from within the mountain pass. The atmosphere in its entire range instantly tensed up. Li Xin's expression changed. "The demons are attacking. I will be returning to assist Lin Xin. Haochen, you can return to rest in the temple first." Long Haochen replied, "Resisting the demons is everyone's duty. Let's go, we just have to go back up. I believe that Tan Wan should be adhering strictly to her job this time, and won't manage us." While saying that, he took the initiative of going up the fortress. Calmly reacting, for the sake of his honor as Saint Knight Head, he didn't renounce resisting the demons. This attitude could only receive Li Xin's secret praises, finding her little brother even more mature than in the past. When everyone was back on the fortress, strong elemental fluctuations were immediately felt. These elemental waves were not launched by the mags, but originating from the Tombal mountain pass. Long Haochen clearly looked at the fortress ground, to see round magic arrays every 50 meters, all colored a milky white. Soft magical waves spread thin white halos that covered every angle of the fortress. Long Haochen sensed that these magic arrays had a gathering effect. While stepping on the magic arrays, the speed of absorption of magic essence was at least 10% higher. And these magic arrays seemed to apply to every elemental used. From afar, one could see black clouds densely cover the skies. Afar off, the 8 demon god pillars emitted some strong breath of darkness. The demon armies were not fast at all. One could only see layer upon layer of darkness essence bubble forth from the demon army's ranks, poured into the black clouds on the sky. The core of the black clouds was the Hell Demon God Pillar. This was a combinatorial attack of the Hell Demons. Despite the still far distance, it already held a powerful oppressive force from the fortress view. The air outside the Tombal mountain pass started to show rippling waves, a signature of the deployed defensive formation. It was because of Kia sickle of the god of death that Kia had managed to break through, only tearing a very small crack, letting them enter the formation for a flash. But this kind of large-scale clash was another story. Thanks to the formation's blockade, not the slightest darkness essence spilled inside the Tombal mountain pass. On the fortress, large amounts of radiant magic essence lit up, mostly gathering the water, fire, earth, wind, and light attributes. The Tombal mountain pass 10 squads were responding. 5 of them were defending the fortress, standing beside warriors who were resisting for their sake, filling the whole fortress. Long Houchen's crew rapidly joined Lin Xin's side, seeing Lin Xin command these mags to start chanting at this time. They were chanting for a spell of the 5th tier specialized into compressing spiritual energy. As the demons were still far, they hadn't reached the optimum range of their magic yet. A mage's magic had limitations of distance, requiring a certain distance to unleash its full might. The stronger a mage was, the greater this distance would grow. Long Houchen found out that all the mags in this team were standing in a group of 6, forming a Star of David. As they were incanting, the staves in their hand gathered essence of the same element in between them, rapidly condensing spiritual energy. Combinatorial magic. With Long Houchen's elemental sensitivity, he could sense that this combinatorial magic was not only for strengthening their magic, but also to increase their attack range. This was surely a specialized research made by the Mage Temple. Surely, they deserved being known as a powerful temple comparable with the Night Temple. Lin Xin didn't participate in these magic arrays. Seeing Long Houchen's group come back to his side, he immediately became overjoyed. Boss. Lin Xin wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Long Houchen. Let's meet the enemy with all we have for now. We will be in your command. All right. After experiencing these 2 years tempering, Lin Xin was far different from before, and visibly became a lot less dependent on Long Houchen. The demon armies advanced at slow speed, but felt tougher than boulders. Every time they went forward, their troops gained in steadiness. The black airflow gradually enveloped the demon armies, and from the fortress, one became gradually unable to discern their looks. The magic waves in the Tombal mountain pass also grew in brilliance, just like an extremely powerful magical beast of ancient times ready to spurt its greatest attack at any time. The oppressive force of both parties was extremely terrifying. Be it humans or demons, all were reaching the critical points when both parties' attacks would meet up. By looking from high above, one could see that the two sides were completely different in color. The demon side was black-colored with a tint of purple, and the Tombal mountain pass glinted in myriads of colors. Upon seeing that massive providence, even a powerhouse of the 9th step would feel insignificant. Lin Xin stood beside Long Houchen, speaking in a low voice. The first clash will be the most violent. The two sides will strike with all their power, but this won't cause casualties. But neither of us will dare be negligent, putting out our full power, otherwise, if the enemy takes the advantage, it will result in complete suppression. After the first clash is over, the demons will start besieging. That will be the real start of the battle. My heart of fire is rather special, unable to unite with their power. The time the enemy besieges will be when I will start to attack. Long Houchen asked, if I use supportive magic, will it affect their combinatorial spell? Lin Xin pondered slightly. Let's try to see after the demons start besieging. I am worried that needless fluctuations may affect the process. And furthermore, the power of my brothers is enough to withstand the demon attack without issue. Lin Xin's prudence made sense. Although he had full confidence in Long Houchen, he preferred avoiding needless risks. After the start of the Holy War, the Tombal mountain pass was used to facing the demon offenses, which was to say that even without an intervention from Long Houchen, they would still resist the enemy's attacks without issue. Since that was the case, why let Long Houchen take risks? If it produced the opposite reaction, wouldn't it just destroy his boss reputation? Long Houchen nodded calmly. He'd never been matched with so many mags, especially when they were in states of using combinatorial magic. So he didn't have an absolute confidence, and from Lin Xin's wording, he was able to gather that the members of the Mage Temple had ample confidence. Since things were that way, why would he take empty risks? The strong elemental waves were growing in fierceness, and the distant demon army suddenly accelerated without prior indication. In the sky, the violent purplish-black radiance violently burst forth, gradually taking the shape of a fierce devil's portrait. What? Something is amiss. Lin Xin's expression changed. Having crossed hands with the demons many times, he knew that this demon offense was quite early compared to usual. Right at this time, that immense devil portrait slowly looked up. From its mouth, a purplish-black beam was shot out, and immediately, 7 beams of different colors shot forth. Gloomy and cold chants were distinctly heard even from the Tombal mountain pass as the 8 demon god pillars gathered all together. That devil portrait seemed to become even more concentrated, as if awaking as a real fiend demon, ready to throw himself at the fortress. A forbidden spell. The 8 great demon gods were joining hands to prepare this forbidden spell. As that skull was flying forward, the previous black clouds turned into its tail, and fused with it in the process of their rapid flight. Forbidden spell! Lin Xin exclaimed. With great emotions, he immediately issued the order, "Gather your attacks. We cannot let that thing approach." The demons had suddenly changed stance, visibly catching the Tombal mountain unprepared. And it would appear that this change of stance was initiated by Marba's command to use the power of the other 7 demon gods alongside the entirety of the mag's attacks. The instant that fierce skull appeared in the battlefield, the overwhelming majority of the mags in the Tombal mountain pass fortress felt as if their blood froze. Even the seal defending the Tombal mountain pass didn't give them any sense of security. This was all just too sudden. Completing this spell from the 8 demon gods took a very short time. The Tombal mountain pass was already out of time to counter that abrupt burst of power. The commanders of the mage squads on the fortress were all veterans. Like Lin Xin, they all immediately made a response. From the fortress, a great amount of magic radiances burst out, gathering like a torrential rain to face that terrifying forbidden spell. "Han Yu, assist me." Long Haochen called out in a low voice to the nearby Han Yu and directly sat in meditation. A meticulous and low chant came out from him, carrying a bizarre tempo and reverberating in a small area. As his cultivation increased, Long Haochen's capacity for judgment also grew. The instant that Devil Skull appeared, he already determined that the Tombal mountain pass could surely not contend against it. Of course, he couldn't either. But he had to give his best shot, even if he could only gain a little time. He had to do his best to give the Tombal mountain pass some time to handle the fatal attack. Han Yu sat in meditation behind Long Haochen, both hands pressed onto his back. With the retainer pact binding him to Haochen, transmission of spiritual energy became a lot easier. Even without the use of Lin Xin's co-joined spiritual pills, it had the same efficiency. In the meantime, he also put to use his spiritual stove of light blessing, which was the true reason for Long Haochen to have asked for his assistance. The orange brilliance coming out from the golden foundation mountain pass grew higher in power, and pure light essence was gathering toward Long Haochen's direction at an astonishing speed. Actually, what Long Haochen didn't know was that the 8 demon gods' sudden outburst and full force, all-out attack was closely related to him. In the past days, the dragon-resisting mountain pass demon god of death Saminaga had to seclude himself due to serious wounds, his demon army utterly defeated. And Sytry's demon army also received severe damage. 2 great forts in a row encountered severe issues. Upon receiving the report, the demon god emperor's first reaction was to launch a counterattack against the humans. Although he didn't think humans had the ability to retaliate, what happened was a matter of fact. The demon god emperor's goal may only be to weaken the human forces, but he definitely wasn't a pacifistic practitioner of Buddhism. Seeing the sudden surge of counteroffensives from the Temple Alliance, he immediately gave this order to the other 4 great forts, to pressure the Temple Alliance to the greatest possible extent and erase all their ideas of counterattacking. At the time Long Haochen's group arrived, the Hell Demon God Marbas just received this order, and after preparing for 2 days' time, the 8 great demon gods relied on their demon god pillars to store the forbidden spell and thereby launch the attack. The stored forbidden spell could be transferred at any time without need for a lengthy incantation. But this would greatly use up the spiritual energy stored inside the demon god pillars, which is why the demon gods ordinarily won't use it easily. It was to inflict serious damage to the Tombal mountain pass that Marbas decided to launch such an attack. And the suddenness of the matter really caught the Tombal mountain pass unprepared. The Wind Control Mage team was the first to launch its offense. The Wind Mags were the fastest, be it their incantations or their offense's speed. In midair, strident sounds that reminded Long Haochen's crew of the experience they had in the desolate hissing cavern, and an immense green spear met straight with that devil's portrait. Hundreds of green lights hit that terrifying black forbidden spell extending over more than 100 meters in diameter. At the time it approached, the devil's portrait had a distorted look, and a large quantity of tornadoes were distorted and routed, so only a little part managed to hit the main body of the forbidden spell, but only slowed down its advance a bit at most. The second burst was the earth mags. In the sky, boulders and rocks the size of millstones suddenly appeared bunched together, flooding the pitch-black forbidden spell with their powers. There's no need to mention that earth elemental magic is far more useful than wind elemental magic in such circumstances. Although a part was expelled, the overwhelming majority landed onto that forbidden spell, causing its speed to once again slow down. But if one paid careful attention, he'd find out that at the time the rock smashed that devil portrait, it was rapidly dissolved and disappeared. It only managed to slow down the speed of this forbidden spell's attack, but didn't manage to weaken its power. After earth came water, or more accurately speaking, ice. A series of blue-colored brilliant rays interweaved, condensing into one. It turned into an ice ball even larger than that devil's portrait, and smashed onto it. The clash was of short duration, and didn't let out any explosion. From the Tombal Mountain Pass's point of view, that immense ice ball melted from its core at an astonishing speed, turning into countless pitch-black raindrops that fell out loudly onto the ground. At last came fire. The mags under Lin Xin's command, grouped in units of 6, formed 10 immense bursting fireballs amplified by the magic formation of the fortress, meeting the skull in the shape of a rain of meteors. Ice and fire were two opposite elements which completed each other miraculously well. A burning hot coming after a freezing cold could greatly penetrate the enemy spell's inner defense. But this seemed to be a failure. The bursting fireballs seemed to lose efficiency as they soared through that black forbidden spell, manifesting the frantic aspect of the fire element. But that black skull still managed to bear the damage, and after sustaining the 4 elemental attacks, it only lost a fifth of its volume. In other words, the joint act of 2,000 mags only managed to dispel a fifth of its offensive power. The consequences of the descent of such a terrifying forbidden spell were hard to imagine. The hell demon Marbas coldly gazed into the distant Tombal Mountain Pass, as the smoky tail acquired by the devil's portrait finished becoming fully one with it. I want to see how you will resist this magic of mine. Hell's Descent Forbidden Spell. Saminaga has actually been wounded by the human's attacks, and is still heavily wounded from what I heard, even his domain having nearly ended up destroyed. Alright, let me take revenge, for him. Marbas and Saminaga were in an extremely good relationship, as the Fiend clan and Hell Demon clan are originally on very close terms. Added up together, they could roughly match the rather fewer moon demons and star demons, making ample proof of their powerful strength. At the very moment this super forbidden spell they were using was his exclusive Hell's Descent, drawing support from the other 7 great demon gods and his clansmen to unleash its greatest might. Even as the one unleashing it, he was unable to evaluate its degree of might. He didn't even think of prolonging the offense after launching that attack. As long as the frontal walls were destroyed, how could the Tombal Mountain Pass that has lost its natural defenses resist them for long? The destruction of the Mage Temple will surely be the most terrible blow ever sustained by the Temple Alliance. Bang! Right at this time, Hell Descent fiercely struck the seal protecting the Tombal Mountain Pass. After sustaining 4 magic bombardments, Hell's Descent only lost a bit of its power, and the instant it struck the seal, the whole mountain trembled, and distorted lights frantically bubbled forth. The seal completely unleashed its might. White halos condensed from all directions, wanting to stop Hell Descent while attempting to dispel it. But the demon's portrait born from Hell's Descent became even more fierce this time as it struggled to break out. One could see that at the time of its contact with the center of the seal, holes were gradually forming. But from the look of it, its breakthrough was only a matter of time. Right at this time, several dozen brilliant golden light beams were shot from the other side, aiming right at the holes pierced in Hell's Descent. At the sight of this scene, Lin Xin couldn't help but tremble slightly. Looking at the direction of the golden light, despite loathing Shen Yuanyang, he had no choice but to admit that he directed the light elemental magic squad under his command well. He had been enduring silently until then, waiting right for this chance. Light and darkness were originally opposite elements. If he had shifted the launch earlier, it would undoubtedly have ended the same as with the other mage squads, only neutralizing a part of the attack. But the instant Hell's Descent collided against the seal, the holes that were produced led to its core. Initiating an attack there would inflict unavoidable damage to the forbidden spell, and made full use of the light attribute countering it. This attack on its core reduced Hell's Descent's might to the greatest extent. As expected, under the attack from that golden light, one could see clearly that Hell's Descent shrank to a great extent, weakened globally by the 500 light mag's joint attacks. The staff on Xian Yuan Yang's hand was pointed forward. Seeing the power of Hell's Descent being brought down, he couldn't help but loosen up. The attack was effective. The light mags on his back didn't need his order to expel their spiritual energy in full force, hoping to stop it outside the formation. Their attack looked like a great success, seeing Hell's Descent shrink at an astonishing speed, but the distant Hell Demon God Marbas had a strange smile on his face. If the joint attacks of 8 great demon gods could be stopped so easily, they wouldn't deserve that appellation. It looked like Hell's Descent's volume had shrunk due to the Holy Light's attack and the Seal's blockade, as it shrank to 1/10 of its original volume. At that very moment, Xian Yuan Yang couldn't help but deliberately glance at Lin Xin's direction. But right at this time, the surroundings suddenly calmed down, as if all sounds were instantly suppressed. Xian Yuan Yang subconsciously turned his head back, finding out with alarm that the extremely shrunken Hell's Descent had come to a standstill and large black nets were extending all around it, spreading out at a frightening speed, as it extended all around the formation. The next instant, a torrential explosion resounded with incomparable ferocity. The Devil's Portrait once again returned to its original size, instantly reducing to pieces the seal on the Tombal Mountain Pass. Xian Yuan Yang and the 500 light mags on his back groaned at the same time, spitting out large amounts of blood. Hell's Descent had shrunk only to break out even more powerfully. This forbidden spell reached such a degree of terror that it already possessed its own intelligence. Xian Yuan Yang's attack was actually still effective, as the Hell's Descent that had drastically enlarged was still quite smaller. But at this time, who could bear its offense? Having lost the defense of their seal, the Tombal Mountain Pass inhabitants all felt stuck in a quagmire, swept away at a frightening speed by the incoming darkness essence. At this time, a green wind broke out once again. Compared to the Wind Mag squad, this time its green color looked a lot more pure, swept from all directions to form a gigantic earth-shattering tornado. Shrouding the Hell's Descent, it entangled all around it, attempting to blow it to a high altitude and rely on the wind's force to consume its might. The Raging Wind Legion commanded by Tan Wan finally made its move. If the fort's defenses were so easy to break through, there's no way it could have held against all the attacks it sustained since the start of the Holy War. The Raging Wind Legion's move was even more powerful than the previous 5 squads' powers added together. Composed entirely of wind mags reaching at least the 7th step, who joined hands to form this combinatorial spell, this tornado's power already reached the forbidden spell level. They had obviously been teamed together for a very long time, otherwise they couldn't have possibly released such an all-out spell of the 7th step in such a short time. Engulfed by the tornado, Hell's Descent once again shrank, trying to lessen as far as possible its time of contact with the tornado. Looking as stable as a boulder, it remained motionless even under the offense of such a blowing tornado. The confrontation between the two sides was already at its climax when the demons attacked suddenly. The Tombal Mountain Pass already had dispatched units to ask for their strongest magic regiments as well as the higher-ups of the Mage Temple, but they needed time to prepare their spells. As long as the mags on the fortress could keep up for some time, the demon's surprise attack would end up without any achievement. 8 black glitters appeared suddenly, tracing long arcs. They belonged to the 8 demon god pillars, and rushed into the tornado at a frightening speed, striking Hell's Descent. With a mournful yell, Hell's Descent instantly split the tornado revolving around it, and kept advancing toward the Tombal fort. Even if the 8 demon gods stopped stepping in, the Storm Corps could actually only block the Hell's Descent only for a short time. But Marbas knew well that he couldn't let them keep dragging time out. If the mage regiments of the Mage Temple took advantage of the opportunity, even if the attack from Hell's Descent finally manages to make it to the Tombal Mountain Pass, the destructive damage would still greatly lower. All the mags in the fortress had looks of shock. The whole fortress was covered in black drizzle. Everyone knew that the Tombal Mountain Pass walls would inevitably fall. And they would all become burial goods accompanying the mountain pass to its grave. From the launch of the forbidden spell to its arrival on the Tombal Mountain Pass, this slow-sounding process had actually lasted for only 10 or so minutes. Everyone was already fearing for their lives. A golden light suddenly flared up without omen, as if coming as suddenly as dawn. Upon meticulous observation, that golden light was actually multicolored, and under its golden brilliance, a figure had elevated itself onto the sky, floating in mid-air right outside the fortress and standing in Hell's Descent's way. A golden Star of David was formed at his back, as he rode a starlight unicorn giving off a divine feel. Wearing a golden mask, and a golden armor and letting out a light aura of extreme purity alongside his starlight unicorn, he brought the Tombal Mountain Pass not only light, but hope. The multicolored golden light surrounding his body was rising up, and golden halos rose up all around the starlight unicorn king, crossing paths with the multicolored light. The knight riding the starlight unicorn made a praying gesture, as a clear incantation came out from his mouth. The multicolored radiance on his back condensed into a huge illusory female shape, also sitting in a praying posture. Speaking of strange, that brilliant Hell's Descent forbidden spell suddenly came to a standstill upon arriving in front of him. In front of its terrible threat, this knight clad in golden armor seemed like a drop in the ocean. But even so, he unexpectedly caused Hell's Descent to come to a stop, making it unable to keep advancing despite being almost within reach of its target. All the mags in the Tombal mountain pass were stupefied at this instant. They could obviously recognize this golden armor to be a Golden Foundation knight's attire. However, the overwhelming majority of these people had no idea when a knight had come here, moreover helping them block this incomparably terrifying threat. Could a knight of the 8th step really resist a supra-forbidden spell born from the joint hands of 8 great demon gods as well as all the hell demons? Even a divine knight would not necessarily manage to accomplish that. Right, Long Houchen was of course unable to accomplish such a feat even if he had already reached the 9th step. His full strength couldn't possibly stop such a forbidden spell's might. Even if this forbidden spell was already weakened by the mags. He wasn't trying to stop it, but to restrict it, using a kind of special spell similar to the star demon god Vasago's great prophecy. The pure light essence didn't have the slightest chance of causing Hell's Descent to weaken any. But at least until his spiritual energy ends up nearly exhausted, this forbidden spell won't be able to keep moving forward in the slightest. Light prayers. This magic already exceeded the scope of the light element, and could be said to be a spell of sacred light, even if the expertise in using sacred light spells was at the priest temple, and not the knight's. This spell was also coming from the cave. In there, Long Houchen learnt mostly guardian knight abilities, while light prayers was carved in its greatest depths. This magic of sacred light was very hard to categorize. Depending on the enemy one faced, its uses would actually differ greatly. It was used as a prayer for safety. The ancestor that left this spell in the Night Temple explained it this way: light prayers is the god's will, as well as the god's forbidden fruit. A human's force could never possibly truly control this ability, but at some cost, it can be used to earn time. Conduct prayers with one's most sincere attitude and with one's purest heart. One would make light prayers the most powerful. This magic of sacred light originated from high-level fairies, therefore even the priest temple was unable to use it. After countless thousands of years passed, this miraculous sacred light magic finally reappeared, launched from Long Houchen's hand. Since the instant Hell's Descent appeared, Long Houchen's great mental force gave him a great feeling of unease. In the meantime, he'd been reciting light prayers chant in his mind. This was an instinctual, instant decision. Long Houchen did not hesitate to follow his feeling and therefore immediately asked for Han Yu's aid as he chanted this spell. As a matter of fact, his choice was accurate. No one else besides him was more of a fit to use this sacred light magic. Compared to his use of sacred light rain, Long Houchen had a much lower consumption. In fact, the whole sacred spell could be described as the establishment of the flow of a canal. It could be maintained as long as the incantation was completed. Han Yu's spiritual energy was fully poured inside Long Houchen, and his spiritual stove of light blessing gave him a formidable recovery alongside the support of the Golden Foundation armor. At the time Long Houchen had completed this spell, a good part of his spiritual energy was left. Right, who else other than the Scion of Light was more qualified to put to use a sacred light magic? Light prayers was activated through the divine snail shield of sun and moon, which is why that multicolored golden light came to view. Long Houchen could deeply feel the might Hell's Descent had as a supra-forbidden spell, and understood that with his own strength, even the full use of light prayers had no way to stop it, which is why he borrowed the divine snail shield's force. Through its last activation as a divine tool, Long Houchen felt that his level of accord with the divine snail shield had grown even higher, which enabled him to grasp some of the secret in the activation of its power as a divine tool. With his current cultivation, a forbidden spell-leveled stimulation was necessary to trigger the divine snail shield's force. And as a matter of fact, he succeeded once again. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.